Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another Shayy reaction, and this is why Undertale is a timeless masterpiece. And this is a pretty monumental video because today is the 10-year anniversary, or at least the day I'm recording it is, of Undertale's release. And man, I mean, thinking about 10 years of Undertale. And we just had 10 years of FNAF last year. And man, it's funny to think, all of these, I mean, would you even call them indie games now? I mean, I guess you could. But, how, these early, big, monumental successes are still around. And then, just recently we had Hollow Knight Silk Song come out, which is, again, one of those, very early, big successes that, you thought was dead, but is still technically around. So it's, it's absolutely nuts. And, I'm very happy to see, and, just talking about it, I've talked about it before in other videos, but, all the reactions I've watched, these people talking about, how Undertale and Deltarune changed their lives, and how it came out just at the right time, and it helped them so much mentally and stuff like that, and they've been able to make careers, and I'm not gonna lie, I feel a little left out. I mean, don't get me wrong, absolutely loved Deltarune, and it did hit me in the right place. I mean, so much so that after I got the perfect ending, I never touched the game again until I played the mod Red and Yellow for Undertale, on stream a while back. I was just thinking about it, I really need to get back into streaming. But yeah, it's it did get to me, but it wasn't some monumental milestone in my life like it was with some people. And when I hear them talk about it, I just again, I feel jealous that that I didn't have the same reaction to that they did. But yeah, I should probably get this thing started because this video is a very long one, and that's going to be a real pain to render and edit through. So I should probably get this thing started. So of course, as always, original videos linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day, and if you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because over 3/4 of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, and I'd very much like that to change, because my main goal for this year is hopefully hit 6,000 subscribers. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Everybody has something in their life that they always come back to. For some people, it's a book or a story that engaged them emotionally for years. For some people, they go see their favorite movie and maybe make a routine out of it. Many people have that one album that they always go back and listen to just because they love it or because it gives them some comfort or reminds them of a happy memory. For me, that something is a video game. For the past decade, I've played plenty of games and enjoyed them, but nothing has engaged with me, stuck with me, or resonated with me more than Undertale. To say that this game changed my life would be an understatement. I've made incredible friendships, met so many wonderful people, and because of this game, I've actually gotten to fulfill a life dream of mine and make YouTube videos and content for a living. But through all of that, the spark of love that I have for this game has never once faltered. In fact, it's less like a spark now and more like a raging fire. And the intensity of the hearth has continuously bellowed throughout the years, as the depths of my appreciation for this seemingly simple game only continue to increase.
What was I saying before about, people playing Undertale and having it be a life-changing experience? Why could that have happened to me? I mean, yeah, thinking back, I remember when, Undertale was still new. I was much more I didn't interact with a fandom a lot, because I generally don't a lot, and I'm very much an observer. But again, I looked through, the Reddits, and, again, big fan fiction reader back in the day. I loved looking through, I've said before, two of my favorite sort of, I don't know, AUs that I loved watching and reading while they were still active was, they were on Tumblr. One was Half-Hearted Dreamers, where, as in, an alternative to to the end of Undertale, like Frisk broke their soul in half, gave half of it to Asriel, and as a result, Frisk turned into a goat monster like Asriel, and they basically became like siblings, which I found really fun. And then the other one was, oh god, what was it called? That was it, A Dreamer Reborn, where basically sort of the same thing happened where, Frisk gave Asriel their soul, and then just Asriel got the chance to live, and then Frisk could periodically, like, possess them to talk to people. It's, like, really funny. And again, I'm really sad because the creator of that was, for a while, they're actually making a fan game based in that AU. And if you want to know, the music that I usually use nowadays as like the background music when I'm talking, like it should probably be playing right now, is actually the battle music from that version. If you want to look it up, it's called Undertale The End. It has an itch.io page. Game Jolt, that's it. It's on Game Jolt. And actually, let me pull up the page here. Yeah, okay, here we go. And yeah, so the music, I probably should add the credits to the description. I'll need to remember to do that. But yeah, the music I use as my background is the normal approaching battle music from this sort of perpetually in hiatus, fan game by DK Doc Uro. And again, like for the longest time, I was so looking forward to that fan game. If it had actually come out, it probably would have been one of the first fan games I ever actually played. Which, since it never came out, that award was kind of given to Undertale Yellow. But yeah, like, I was so upset when I discovered that was, when that game was basically put on hold.
And now, the successor and parallel story to Undertale, Deltarune, has been released to immense success with more chapters coming in the future. And don't get me wrong, I love Deltarune too, but something always keeps me transfixed on Undertale. This game is incredibly special to me, and today, for the 10th anniversary of my favorite game ever made, I wanted to really lay it all out. I want to critically analyze this game and why I think it has stood the test of time as a masterpiece and one of the greatest video games of all time.
God, I'm just reminded of it. I think it was a couple of months ago now at this point, but I remember there were people going around on Twitter, because of course it's always Twitter, and they were talking about how, like, crude Undertale looked in comparison to Deltarune, and there was just there were legitimately some people going around. Granted, they were few in number, but there were a few people going around saying that Undertale was legitimately a bad game just because Deltarune was, more advanced in a lot of ways. It's like, I honestly can't understand that mindset.
As the person who's played Undertale more times than, well, anybody, what is it about this game that has made me continue to love it and has elevated that love to adoration as the years go by? To do that, what you're about to watch is the ultimate deep dive into Undertale as a game on every single layer. So sit down, get comfy, and let's get into why Undertale is a timeless masterpiece. So, approaching a review of this game is a little difficult. Undertale succeeds and does incredibly interesting things on several different layers of narrative, from the inherent game narrative to the astounding meta-narrative and complete destruction of the fourth wall. When I reviewed Undertale Yellow, that game didn't rely nearly as much on meta-narrative, and as such, I was able to just kind of copy a review template from the YouTubers and creators who inspired me to do reviews in the first place.
Okay, yeah.
Undertale is different, though. So I'm going to tackle this game in layers. Imagine a gigantic onion. And now...
Onions have layers! Oh, god damn it. God, Shrek.
Now we can put Sans' face on it. Onion Sans, like the character in the game.
Smack! Smack! Just all the smack!
At least I think that was their name. Onions have multiple layers, and for this video, I'm going to divide Undertale into 3 layers and talk about them individually. The first layer, the outer shell, is all the merits Undertale has as just a video game. This will be all of your video gamey things like the general story, music, settings, the characters.
Yeah.
Then, the next layer, the middle section, will be all about how the writing utilizes the uniqueness of video games as a medium to create a fantastic meta-narrative and do incredibly interesting things with that face. And then, at the core of the onion, I have a special segment reserved for what I consider to be some of the most compelling writing and interesting and unique player-to-character dynamics ever put in a piece of media. This third layer will focus almost exclusively on the relationship the player has with the main villain of the game, Flowey, in such an interesting way.
Oh yeah, I heard a lot of videos on that.
Wonderful onion sands, you too can appreciate the game in the same way that I do. So, let's start eating this onion together. Actually,
oh, come on, you're gonna eat it raw? You're not even gonna caramelize it? Ugh, disgusting.
that sounds like a terrible idea. Eating raw onion sounds pretty gross. So instead, we can pretend this is one of those delicious chocolate lava cakes that those pizza places always send you at like lukewarm temperatures.
So chocolate lava sands? Okay.
Much better. So Undertale's a video game. And this exterior layer is the most important one. If the game itself wasn't fun to play or wasn't engaging, then unfortunately it would prevent the really juicy stuff in the middle from ever being appreciated. After all, we play video games to have a good time, and thankfully, Undertale is a great time, even if you choose to not interact with it on a deeper level, or if you're just looking for something easily digestible. The overarching scenario is as follows. A long time ago, there was a war between humans and monsters. Humans won out, and as a result, they trapped the monsters underground in a place known as, well, the Underground. Go figure.
Yeah.
7 human sages ripped straight out of Zelda created a barrier around the Underground to prevent the monsters from ever escaping. And in order to break this barrier, the matching power of 7 human souls would be needed. Crossing the barrier is possible, but only for someone with a human soul. See, in this world, the soul is an intrinsically important thing tied to a living being. Humans have powerful souls and are depicted as having various colors that you'll learn are tied to characteristics. Monster souls are less powerful and are depicted as colorless. The reason the war happened at all is because monsters have the innate ability to absorb human souls to become incredibly powerful, and humanity feared this power. Cut forward to 20X-teen.
Which, actually thinking about it, that whole part of the backstory, like, how, I mean, thinking about, we never see truly how powerful a monster is with one human soul. We see how powerful they can be with multiple. Thank you, Flowey. But, like, thinking about it, like, how often did that actually happen, you know, back in the day in the Undertale world? Because, like, obviously the fact that it is known shows that it has happened before. But, like, I mean, given that, you know, the humans were, I would assume, proactive, and there weren't generally a lot, and I would assume there weren't a lot of monsters that were powered up with human souls to fight in the battle, thus, you know, monsters lost. Like, it wasn't something that happened often, like, at all, it would seem. And now saying that out loud, I want to see it happen in Deltarune. I don't know, oh god, that would be, oh.
And the game's intro shows us a human child falling into a cave on Mount Ibat, a place where people are said to go missing, and is actually a secret one-way entrance to the Underground. The game starts from this position, letting you name the fallen child, and then you go on your way. The first character you meet is Flowey, a talking flower who seems incredibly nice, but then immediately turns on you after teaching you the basic mechanics of the game.
Yep.
Flowey shows his philosophy immediately, that the world is kill or be killed, and almost manages to take you out right away before you get saved by another character named Toriel. She introduces herself as the caretaker of the ruins, the first major area of the game.
And can I just say, I can't remember exactly, you know, how long it was, because again, very long time ago, but I mean, I still can remember the shock that I had when I found out that specifically Toriel was named after the fact that she's part of the tutorial. Like, I honestly, like, again, like, I'm that kind of person where, like, it were something that obvious would not, I was so oblivious. Even now I'm still rather oblivious, but, you know, even more so when I was younger.
Ruins are a very tame tutorial area with low power monsters and plenty of tutorials on how the game works. Of course, Toriel's name is even a pun on tutorial,
Yep.
as she literally handholds you through several rooms. Right from the start, Undertale demonstrates the kind of writing style that persists throughout the whole entire game. It lives and breathes comedic elements, very much inspired by the writing of the Mother series and Earthbound in particular, a game Toby Fox was an enormous fan of. After all, he even got his start in game development with various Earthbound ROM hacks, with the most popular and infamous one being the Earthbound Halloween hack in 2008. Though I'd say the writing of Undertale is quite a lot better than the self-admittedly edgy writing that 16-year-old Toby put into those games.
Honestly, I've never seen... I've only ever seen clips of the Halloween ROM hack. I've never actually seen the full thing. That might be just something to have fun with one day. Just like actually look it up and see what all the hype and about it is.
This ironic, comedic, and quirky humor is the lifeblood of Undertale's writing, and a substantial part of this game experience definitely hinges on it. And
yeah, Papyrus is non-binary and is only attracted to himself. That... Wait, no, wouldn't that make Papyrus narcissistic?
Even if it's not your thing, I think most of the jokes land consistently for most players, though it may go a bit overboard at times for some. Since Ruins is all about explaining the game mechanics to the player, and now's a good time to cover the battle system. While incredibly simple, I cannot believe something like this had never been thought of before. Undertale takes a traditional, simple turn-based RPG and mashes it together with the bullet hell style gameplay of Touhou Project, one of Toby's favorite game series. This creates a fantastic back and forth dynamic in the combat system, where every enemy feels varied and individual because they all have unique attacks and patterns from each other. It also keeps you mechanically invested, which is a criticism many have had of the old school turn-based RPGs of the 90s.
Honestly, yeah, that is definitely a thing, because I'm not generally one to play bullet hell games. And, like, before, even after Undertale, I'm not the biggest RPG player. Probably, like, the biggest RPG that I played would have been, like, the Mario Bros. Ones, where, you play as Mario and Luigi. Like, what was it? Like, honestly, I think one of my favorites was, like, Bowser's Inside Story and stuff like that.
Undertale throws one little more piece of secret sauce into the mix, though, and adds in the ability to converse with monsters, inspired
During
directly
the fights,
from
yeah.
the Shin Megami Tensei series. I've never actually beaten one of those games before, but I did play a bit of Shin Megami Tensei 4, and the monster chatting system was one of the highlights for me. But Undertale really makes it its own. In fact, it's the core backbone behind the game's impressive morality system. The entire game is built around talking to monsters, getting to know them as people, and in order to show them mercy through the spare command. Again, this mechanic never really gets dull because Undertale is a pretty short game that has a healthy variety of monster encounters and even multiple different ways to spare them that makes the system continuously fun and fresh to interact with. I really enjoy when RPGs give mechanical skill a place to shine. It's what I adore about game series like Mario and Luigi. As sure, my numbers go up as I grow more powerful and I unlock skills, but I also feel like I'm being rewarded for being just better at the game's systems.
Yeah?
I'd say the only part of the combat system that doesn't feel quite as deep is the fighting. In this game, you have 4 options in a battle: fight, act, item, or spare. Spare is just used to either run away from encounters that you've fought before to save you time, or to show monsters mercy after acting with them properly. Acting, like I said before, is the core of the system, and fighting itself is a mechanic without terribly much depth.
Which would, given the narrative, given the whole narrative of Undertale, I think might be literally on purpose.
You get this reticle? I think it's a reticle. I don't even think Toby knows exactly what this is supposed to be, because this thing shows up in Deltarune and is just called Undertale Combat Thing in that game's files.
Wait, really? It's just Undertale Combat Thing? Really? Okay. Other than that, I do know, I think it was on, like, one of those facts videos I've done reactions to, but, like, apparently in the actual file, like, the resolution for this thing is actually circular, and in the game, it's squashed down to an oval. So, like, I don't know.
But yeah, combat in this game comes down to timing a button press in the middle of the combat thing, and that's really it. No magic, no real variety, there's not even a defend command. The only variety you get is the amount of reticles that appear, which is controlled by the type of weapon you have equipped. You can get multi-reticle weapons that transform the game's combat into something kind of akin to the rhythmic timing of Mother 3's combat system, but it lacks the dynamic music component of that game. However, here's the thing. This system is a bit on the simple side and would get kind of tiring, but you ultimately barely use this thing, as the acting is such a fun thing to do that you seldom ever really click fight, except in the extremely rare scenarios where you need to.
And again, the whole again going to genocide where like I forget which video it was. I watched one recently where they were talking about how going through like genocide is very much like it's methodical and almost like a job because like it's meant to feel just tiring and constant where you're supposed to just kill every single thing over and over and over and over again. And I kind of feel like that part of combat might have been done specifically on purpose like that.
So I don't really think that this system's simplicity is a downside at all, at least in the context of this game. Due to the game's short length too, and how fun the bullet hell enemy attacks are, I think this game's battle mechanics are basically perfect for what this game is trying to be. It of course leaves room for expansion, which is clear as day by how much Deltarune innovates on it.
Yeah.
But what's here is not only good enough, but shining with creativity. Again, I can't state enough how enjoyable the bullet hell mechanics fused with traditional RPG mechanics are as a concept. And throwing the monster talking on top of that creates a system that I don't think I can ever really tire of. Other than that, there's not really many mechanics to speak of in this game. Overworld movement is incredibly simple, no run button, and just a menu with items that you can use on the field. It's incredibly self-explanatory.
Well, I mean, I think in the original Undertale, there isn't even the ability to run. You just walk everywhere.
Not having a run button seems like it could be an issue, and admittedly, on repeat playthroughs, you do find yourself wishing the movement speed was maybe just a little higher.
That's why literally every other fan game that's ever been made for Undertale has a run option.
But generally, I find the construction and layout of the rooms to actually suit the lack of a run button just fine. One time, I played a mod of the game that just gave me the Deltarune run button, and it was completely out of control and really did not fit the game at all. That is to say, I think the design of the areas make up for the simplicity of the movement, and I find that it's completely serviceable. It didn't need to be anything more than it was, and it never really got in the way for me. Once you get all up to date with the game's mechanics, you eventually reach the ruins in Toriel's house, and after exploring and chatting with her enough, you find the means to leave. Toriel, however, doesn't want you to, exclaiming that she's let others through here and they all perish as a result.
Yep.
In order to stop you from leaving, Toriel engages you in a battle. This is the first major morality test in this game, as nothing's stopping you from defeating Toriel in a battle and killing her to move on. But through enough careful examination of the battle system and all the options you have available to you, you'll find that repeatedly selecting spare and doing absolutely nothing will eventually get her to give up and let you through. No matter which way you choose, she warns you that a character named Asgore must not be allowed to take your soul, and you'll soon leave the ruins. From this point, Undertale's main...
God, thinking back, I've talked about it before, but like, I kind of cheated a little bit like that, because thinking back, when I first played Undertale, I bought it like basically, I remember hearing, that it was this really popular new game that people were having a lot of fun with it. And then after that, I started seeing people uploading Let's Plays, and the first Let's Play I ever watched was done by the Game Grumps, or on their PC show they had at the time called Steam Train, at least I think it was. During that episode, during like the first episode, at one point they said, this is a really good game, like, don't get yourself spoiled on it, and go play it yourself. And I actually did what they suggested, and went out, bought the game, finished it, and before I went back to actually watch the playthrough, I should say. But the absolute first time I played the game, I couldn't figure out how to get, Toriel to stand down, so I ended up defeating her. I killed her. But doing that, I felt really bad, and I spoiled myself a little bit and looked up how you actually defeat her, peacefully. And, by the constant sparing, and I did it, so at that point, I basically restarted the game fresh and played through the opening of the game again to defeat Toriel by sparing her, and at which point I played the game normally again after that. Oh, God, memories.
Main narrative takes a backseat, and you'll pick up pieces of lore and world building from various characters and various places that you talk to, as you traverse towards the end of the underground. Instead, the focus becomes incredibly character-driven. This was already the case with Toriel, but every single area has a major character that is the main draw and appeal of that area. You'll explore the frigid tundras of Snowdin and be met with the iconic skeleton brother duo of Sans and Papyrus, named after the comic Sans and Papyrus fonts. After that, the solemn, quiet waters of Waterfall, and you'll meet Undyne, the captain of the Royal Guard of the Underground. And after that, you have the magma-filled halls of Hotland, where you meet the royal scientist, Dr. Alphys, and her creation, a human eradication robot that also doubles as the ultimate warrior of capitalism, Metaton. And only after all of that do you reach the final area of the game, Newhome, where Asgore lives, and where the game will come to a close. I went through all of these quickly because I want to talk about all of the characters all in depth, and it's important to know the context of the story as a whole before getting into their individual personalities. Before that though, Undertale's locales really stand out in my mind. Every single area has a very distinct color palette that makes them instantly recognizable from each other and stand out in my mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Ruins is this magenta brick labyrinth. Snowdin is this off-white, bluish, snowy tundra with green trees. Waterfall has almost luminescent water at times, and other times has this blackish water that makes it feel swampy and mysterious, complete with water droplets from the ceiling that double as both rain and a faint night sky. And Hotland, well, it's a fire area with steam vents, but the real draw is the core sub-area with the neon blue and red lights with this awesome glowing liquid thing.
Like, a lot of blues in the game, but just going to, like, and not even just the color palette, but also just the way that things are designed in this. Because, you know, again, while it is, like, again, like, the ruins give off the sense that very much they are, you know, abandoned ruins that are only very sparsely lived in. Snowdin and the forest, you know, and just cold, snowy. When you eventually get to the town, it's very, very small town-esque. Very, you know, very loving and very just adorable, a place you'd like to live. And then after that, it's very wet, very damp, very swamp-like. Then hot, volcanic. And then you'll going to the core, and I've said it before that, like, looking back on it, the core, while it is, you know, the main central bit of infrastructure that, you know, the underground is, you know, built around, you know, creating all of the power that, you know, and electricity that, you know, the underground uses. You look at it, and certain, like, areas like these hallways where you have, like, the red coily things in the walls sort of exposed, and you have the craggly, like, paneling that's been broken away. Like, the core looks like it's maintained, but it looks like it is this old and ancient thing that is just, like, being barely held together. And, like, it looks like, you know, people are taking care of it as best they could, but it doesn't look like it will last forever, even if they are doing their best to maintain it.
Giving the whole place an eerie glow. Newhome, by comparison, is colorless and is a palette swap of ruins, making the end of the journey akin to the beginning. Visually, the game does way more than you'd expect with the style it goes for. Undertale's visuals are directly inspired by that early 16-bit era, thinking of games like Final Fantasy IV and, of course, Earthbound. But many places in the game have a quaint beauty to them, despite all the silly and sometimes scrungly sprites. Scrungly isn't a word, I just made that up. But I think it's a good descriptor for the character sprites in this game. They're always oozing with personality and charm, and I think that gives the game an extremely unique look.
Again, like, oh god, that's one of those things, like, forgetting whose playthrough I was watching, and like, and they were playing Deltarune, and they got to the point in chapter 4 where you fight the Titan and stuff like that, and they started talking about how the sprite work and stuff like that, how it made sense that you had like the more antiquated like sprite work that fell more in line with, you know, Undertale's being put up against, you know, the eldritch horror that was the Titan, where it's being depicted in like much more modern quote-unquote sprite work. And God, I wish I could remember what channel this was now, but the way they talked about, you know, the regular sprite work like in Undertale and for the most part in Deltarune, it sounded very much almost demeaning. Like, oh yeah, you know, the more crude, the simpler sprite work. Like, like while they didn't outright say it was bad, you could almost tell in the way they were describing it that, they didn't give it the highest regard. And I will say, Undertale and, for the most part, Deltarune's sprite work is relatively simple. But that doesn't mean it's bad. Like, it still looks beautiful and wonderful. It feels homey.
The underground as a whole feels very lived in, and there's life around every corner. Once you arrive in New Home, the main plot suddenly kicks back in. On your walk to Asgore, the monsters explain the story of their people. A long time ago, a human child fell into the ruins and was adopted by Asgore and Toriel together, and grew up alongside their own child, Asriel. However, one day, the human child grew fatally ill and eventually passed away. Asriel took their soul and merged with it and crossed through the barrier with the newfound power and arrived at a human village. Asriel decided not to fight them and returned back to the underground and died in Asgore's garden from his wounds. Asgore, in a fit of rage, declared war on humanity and that every single human who fell into the underground through Mount Ebat would be killed, and eventually they'd gather enough souls to shatter the barrier and return to the surface. This legend paints Asgore as this incredibly imposing and powerful figure, but what you find of him is very different.
Yeah.
Let's start with that character analysis now, shall we? Asgore is hyped up through the entire game to be the baddest guy there is. Toriel talks about him like he's a borderline demonic figure that hunts down humans mercilessly, but Papyrus and Undyne both give different accounts of what he's like in person. And eventually, only at the very end of the game, do you actually get to find out what he's like.
Okay, I just gotta pause the video here. What is going on with some of these videos, some of these video clips being used here? I've seen it a couple times so far, and in some of these scenes being used, like, the video will become partially staticky. I'm not the only one seeing that, right?
And eventually, only at the very end of the
game,
game,
see, what's happening there? Like, it's the bitrate. Like, it's like the video's bitrate is temporarily being, like, thrown out of whack. Yeah, this is just almost this isn't actual static. Like, what's going on here?
Asgore is a sad, broken man. Truthfully, despite being statistically far and away the most powerful monster around, he doesn't like fighting and really doesn't want to do anything with it. But because of the circumstances and the decision he made while still reeling from the traumatic experience of losing both of his children in a single night, he's lost everything. He feels shackled to his declaration that humans must be eradicated, but truthfully, he feels incredible shame over what he's had to do. Toriel left him because of his decision and sealed herself into the ruins to get away from it all. This is a man that's at the end of his rope, so to speak. He believes he is beyond mercy, and in one of the game's most iconic set pieces,
he destroys the mercy
button when you face him, forcing you to fight him to the bitter end. He is an incredibly complicated character, and an interesting subversion of the expectations you have about him throughout the entire game. You'd think he'd be this big, imposing figure, but no, that's not what you get with him. You get an incredibly conflicted, morally gray character who has made an incredible amount of mistakes, but ultimately you are given the choice at the end of the fight, just like you always are, to spare him or kill him. I remember the first time I got to this part, I actually sat here for a while thinking about what I should do. Asgore himself encourages you to kill him and take his soul and escape, but is that because he thinks it's the best thing for everyone, or even for you? Or is it because he's lost hope in his life and just wants a way out?
Honestly, okay, so going back to my first playthrough of Undertale, and how I said before, I generally kind of don't think about things that deeply at times. I didn't think of any of that. I just thought, oh, hey, the mercy button's back. I'm going to be merciful, just because, that was the good thing to do at the time. Oh, God.
Well, while I sit here and mull it over, there's other characters to talk about. Toriel is someone you spend a lot of time with in the beginning of the game, only for her to basically disappear through the rest of it. As such, a lot of her further development is stuff you learn about through other characters. She's incredibly motherly and protective, as you find out at the beginning, but she has a lot of internal conflict about how she left the Underground's public eye as the former queen. Due to Asgore's plan, she felt she had to leave and couldn't be with him anymore. But you come to realize that she also had to grieve the loss of her 2 children basically alone as well, and it makes a lot of her seemingly overprotective qualities make sense. She desperately yearns to have a child figure in her life again, something she was robbed of. And yet, every human who falls into the Underground eventually wanted to leave her again. But you learn she is also incredibly lonely and longing for friendship, as you'll find out through her interactions with Sans through the ruins door.
Yeah, here he is.
Sans is a complicated and mysterious character, and
Even more so when you plug into the fact that he may be from Deltarune.
to this day, there's a lot of mysteriousness about him. He and Papyrus just appeared one day in Snowdin without much explanation, and he always seems to have this feeling around him that he knows much more than he lets on, and masks that with the very funny antics and silly charades that he and his brother put you through. There's a part of the game where Sans opens up about meeting Toriel through the ruins door, and how he promised to her that he'd protect the next human who came through. And Sans, just for a moment, switches off the humorous facade with a cold-faced expression, telling you that he could have ended you immediately if he wanted to. He always feels mysterious and like he's far more knowledgeable and powerful than he lets on, but these are the aspects of his character that you'll only learn throughout repeated playthroughs. Papyrus, on the other hand, is a lot more outward about who he is. He's loud, hot-headed, but yet has a very emotionally sensitive side as well that makes you think he's surprisingly self-aware about his antics and his persona. He desperately wants to be a part of the Royal Guard, but that's mostly because he longs for friendship and someone who values it, and he's one of the most compelling characters in the game. He's a ton of fun to learn more about and interact with, has some of the best jokes and some of the best humor in the game, and is the glue that allows you to get you to know Undyne. Undyne is a powerful captain of the Royal Guard and a purely antagonistic force throughout Waterfall before you can eventually find out more about her and get to know her through Papyrus. Eventually, you two can become friends, and you'll learn that she's a protective and surprisingly caring figure who would do basically anything to protect her friends and her people, like Alphys. Alphys is complicated. She's super nerdy and shy and awkward, and spends a lot of time communicating with you both directly through phone calls and indirectly through text messages, which she forgets you can see.
God, I'm still, again, thinking back to like Undertale Red and Yellow, and the fact that they actually give you an option to mute all of her text messages, and how Chara gets so angry at you if you choose not to. Oh god, that is so funny.
Eventually, you find out that the whole scenario with Metaton was a farce, and that she created false dangerous scenarios because she still wanted you to desperately appreciate her, but ultimately realizes that it was wrong to do that. Still, you weren't actually in any real danger, and the comedy of those scenarios with Metaton is some of the most fun in the entire game.
The dog is a bomb!
But she still feels great shame over that. It's clear that she hides something deeper and feels great insecurity about something in particular, but it's not clear to the player what exactly that is.
Yeah.
All of these characters have something in common. They're not black and white. Well, I mean, they literally are in the game's battle system, but morally, they have struggles, and they've all made mistakes. They're all deep characters with incredibly well-defined personalities, and seeing them interact with you and with each other is one of the best aspects of Undertale as a game. This game lives and dies by the characters, and if you look at Undertale's reception, it is clear. These are some of the most beloved video game characters ever created. People absolutely adore these characters, not to mention the incredibly strong supporting cast. I didn't even mention in-depth characters like Napstablook, Metaton, Muffet. This game has so many incredibly strong character moments and just fantastic writing across the board. They feel like real people. They're complicated, but they're also funny, endearing, and just entertaining to be around. Undertale takes such a large risk narratively by having the main plot of the game take such a backseat, but I think it paid off wonderfully because the character writing is just that good.
Oh god, it really is. Like, and going back to like Muffet and stuff like that. Like, I had for the longest time I had no idea Muffet was like one of the the fan characters that was added in due to from Undertale's Kickstarter. And thinking about it, that might be the reason why we haven't met Muffet yet, or ever will meet Muffet in Deltarune, because they're not technically one of like Toby Fox's characters, which is a little sad. But I mean, what are you gonna do?
It's such an incredible aspect of the game, and it's why further, deeper discussion of these characters has persisted, even now. There's whole YouTube channels dedicated to talking about this game's characters, even beyond just theory crafting and connections to the ongoing Deltarune story. It
Really?
is clear as day that Undertale made an incredible achievement with this iconic cast of characters. Oh yeah, I think I might have missed a character, but hopefully that shouldn't be a big deal. I think I finally made up my mind on what to do with Asgore here, so let's just...
Here we go!
In an incredibly shocking moment, Flowey, from the very beginning of the game, returns and kills Asgore and takes the stored away human souls. In fact, if you carefully observed during your playthrough, you would have noticed that he was actually following you the entire time. There's dozens of rooms you can walk backwards in to find him there, following you, watching you, even speaking into one of Waterfall's echo flowers, taunting you. But now, he removes your agency, your choice. No matter what you do, Asgore will die here. Even if you believe he deserves mercy, Flowey takes that away from you, because in this world, as he says, it's kill
or be killed.
The final boss fight against Flowey is one of Undertale's most iconic set pieces. After causing the game to fake crash, Flowey emerges as this eldritch abomination, completely warping the art style of the game. No longer is it pixel art, it's high-resolution 3D images stitched together to create this unsettling, unnerving entity that serves as the game's final boss.
God, I still remember, because like nowadays, everybody refers to this as, Omega Flowey and stuff like that, but I still remember back when the game first released, when everybody called this Photoshop Flowey. Just because, it's like all like weird, desperate pieces, actual like photorealistic models again, and I really wish I actively, I wish I uploaded videos back then and actually like uploaded my Let's Play, cause like I remember getting so freaked out by this. And like, again, me being me, I was actually tricked by, the game crashing and thought something actually went wrong. Oh God. Again, I've said it before, but like you can only ever truly experience something for the first time like once. And honestly, that is one of those times that I wish I could go back and experience that again. Because that was nuts.
Flowey toys with you, weaponizing save states and the power he has with the absorbed souls. This fight was such a landmark feature that I feel like it inspired a ton of other works to break out of their preconceived shells and do absolutely crazy things like this.
Yeah.
Flowey is relentless and intentionally overwhelming, but even if you continuously die, you're always making progress very slowly. And as you start to free the various human souls in these little minigame segments, before eventually confronting Flowey with all of your strength. But even that's not enough, as he restores his own HP after faking you out, and seemingly is about to win and take your soul. He eventually is defeated by the combined force of all of the souls, bringing you to the final choice of the game. Do you kill Flowey, or do you let him live? Do you subscribe to his mentality of kill or be killed, or do you show mercy to him and allow him to escape, even after everything he's done? Undertale gets no illusions about attempting to tell you what the right answer here is. There isn't one. Other choices in the game would rob you of getting to know one of the game's characters, or make the area feel more desolate and empty because that character was gone. But here, this is the very end, and it's up to you to make that decision. Attempting to spare Flowey will have him repeatedly tell you that killing is the only way. But if you go through with it, you'll eventually confuse him to the point of bewilderment, and he runs away. Or you can choose to end his life. Either way, you walk forward and leave the underground and get an ending.
An ending,
The ending you receive depends on the choices you made. Sans will call you on the phone, and all the major characters will talk to you or be referenced if they're alive. The variety of endings in Undertale is staggering. At this particular juncture, there are technically 81 unique endings you can receive, but assuming you do not consider Sans' flavor text at the very beginning of the call to constitute as a major change, there's still roughly 15 major endings, with several of them having splits that are pretty major, putting the real amount to around 20-ish. That is one hell of a payoff to the game's morality system.
God, thinking back, I remember seeing. I can't remember the specific video, but I think it referenced Shayy, uh, specifically because when they were talking about the game's like narratives and stuff like that, and they used a clip of Shayy where I think they were like doing a speed run to try to get every single like one of the 81 endings in Undertale. Or wait, was it Shayy? I forget who actually was. I don't think actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it was Shayy, but they used a clip where they were specifically pointing out, like they were talking about how they were going to get like every single one of the endings in like a single stream or something like that. It was absolutely nuts.
And it makes these endings feel all pretty unique. What characters you killed, who you spared, who you got to know. Did you hang out with Papyrus and Undyne? Different ending. Did you kill a few monsters along the way? Different ending. Did you kill all of the major characters but not a single other monster? Dog ending. Did you leave Toriel alive and kill Undyne? Different ending. Will Metaton take over? What happens if Papyrus is the only one left? What happens if you kill almost everyone? Will Sans take over? The game accounts for every single one of these scenarios, and as a result, it leaves the morality system feeling incredibly important and impactful. Your ending is a result of your journey, and the journey isn't particularly long or tedious, so replaying for a different ending is baked into the core design of the game. I think something important to note here as well is that the endings you receive here are satisfying enough that if a player did not feel like replaying the game again, although not a terribly tall order, Undertale ending here is still a satisfying enough journey. Though you'll be missing out on the further content hidden in the game's true ending.
Yep.
Still, the endings you receive here are good enough that they don't feel like they're just a pit stop on your journey, and rather feel like conclusions to your tale, depending on the choices you made. Something the game does do is that the vast majority of these endings, even with all the characters alive, have a somber vibe to them. While they don't usually feel unsatisfying, they do definitely urge you to want to get a better outcome for these characters.
Yeah, well, I mean, specifically, because, basically every single one of them, at least one person died, and that's Asgore, because of the fight, because of Flowey and stuff like that. So there's always just that little bit of melancholy. And then, if you actually let Flowey survive, that's when you get the prodding to try again and load a different save and do the True Lab and all that.
And the more of them that you hurt or killed, the more somber and outright depressing some of these get. The No King ending, obtained by killing all of the Monster King candidates and some additional regular encounters, is intentionally pretty much void of anything. Undertale does a good job in that it pushes you to be a better person in the game itself by organically showing you the consequences of killing instead of just telling you, no, that's bad, don't do that, flat out. It lets you do it. See the
it is, but
consequences for yourself, and then make the decision to try again and see if you can do a little bit better. It's always your choice and your call, and this game does a great job at making that feel meaningful in this ending segment. Afterwards, though, if you spared Flowey, he instructs you that it may be possible to obtain a better ending for everyone by getting to know Alphys more and making sure you do not kill anyone. You might think to yourself that if you kill Flowey, you'll be able to spare Asgore, but this is where Flowey reveals his insidious little trick. In order to go back, you'd have to reload your save file, which results in Flowey being resurrected, ultimately making your previous choice feel kind of pointless. If you then attempt to spare Asgore, he confirms what I said earlier about him not believing he deserves a way out, and attempts to take his own life to give you his soul, before being intercepted by Flowey, and the same results play out as before.
Yep.
You're basically backed into a corner to try out this better ending that Flowey hints at, which leads you directly into the game's pacifist ending. In the pacifist route, all the loose ends from earlier are tied up. You can hang out with Alphys and help her finally admit her feelings to Undyne about being in love with her. Yuri always wins. But the pacifist route has an entire exclusive area.
Well, hello. Yeah, so sorry for the slight interruption in the reaction. Yeah, my 9-year-old monitor finally decided to give up the ghost and die on me in the middle of a reaction. So I had to go out and buy a new one. Oh, okay. A lot of stress. Let's get back into why. Let's get back into why Undertale is such a good game. Okay, shall we?
Entire exclusive area, Alphys' True Lab, where you learn what she had been hiding and been ashamed of the entire time. The area is a creepy, grungy place that almost feels analog horror in its presentation, littered with deformed, creepy monsters known as amalgamates. However, you find out that these creatures were the results of experiments Alphys was conducting on attempting to extract the core essence of the thing that makes human souls so powerful: determination. Throughout the entire game, the word determination pops up a lot as a recurring theme, seemingly an emotion that empowers you as a player. But in reality, it's an actual physical substance that exists in the world that causes things to come to life. Literally, determination. Absolutely top tier wordplay on that one. That was such an incredible reveal to learn about for the first time. These amalgamate monsters.
Honestly, again, it's that sort of stuff like, again, like, of course, heard of determination throughout the entire game and through the True Lab, but, like, I didn't realize there was the wordplay going on there of determination until I watched several of these, like, Undertale, like, video essays, and again, like, honestly, like, I honestly do wonder, how long did it take Toby to think that up? Was that very much like just something he thought up when he was first developing the game, or was that wordplay that it took him time to think up?
Monsters were previously comatose monsters that were on death's door before being brought back to life with determination. But monster bodies cannot handle determination in the same way that humans can, which caused them to melt together. Alphys feels incredible shame about these experiments and feels as though she has to hide them away, because how could she possibly explain all of this to anyone without them thinking she's crazy? But ultimately, she did save all of these monsters from their impending, inevitable deaths, despite the circumstances.
Yeah.
And she was trying to do good. It's a complex situation, but one that you can help her move on from and face together. But maybe the most terrifying and game-redefining discoveries you can find down here are through this TV and the final monitors. On the TV, various VHS tapes give you some missing context on Azrael and the fallen human, with it being revealed here that the character you named at the beginning isn't the character you control. No, the original fallen human, the one Azrael was siblings with, that was the character you named at the beginning. This human character's name is canonically whatever you decided it to be, but through a little secret Easter egg on the naming screen, the fanbase refers to this human as Kara for the sake of discussion about them. Just note that if I mention Kara, I am referring to this character.
Yeah.
Through the VHS tapes, you learn that Kara's illness was self-inflicted. They intentionally consumed toxic flowers called buttercups as part of a plan for Azrael to take their soul and cross the barrier.
Shayy, you do know buttercups are a real thing, right? I'm sorry, I'm saying that because the way Shayy said, worded that, it sounded like they didn't know buttercups were a real, like, flower. Actually, thinking about it, are buttercups actually toxic? I always just took that at face value, but I never really thought about it. Let me double check that right now. That is according to cellular structure, buttercup petals. We reveal that the reason behind the yellow glow, apart from helping warm the flower sanctuary. Huh. Okay, so they are so they are poisonous. Okay.
Kill 6 other humans and come back and free monster kind. Ultimately, Azrael is trepidatious about this plan and doesn't want to lose his sibling, but goes through with it anyway. This moment, although short, basically entirely recontextualizes the story you thought you knew, but one other bombshell is dropped on you right as you exit the True Lab. Determination was injected into the flower in Asgore's garden, the one right in the middle, the one that all the piles of Azrael's dust fell on top of, and that little flower mysteriously disappeared shortly thereafter. Still, the game does notably not spell it out in plain text what this means, although I and many other players figured it out by now.
I'm gonna be completely honest here. I did not. I just realized my camera might not have been, centered on me, so that's gonna be annoying to edit.
You return to New Home and confront Asgore again, but all of your friends come to stop the fight and all promise to have a good life in the underground. Flowey, however, reveals that this was all part of his plan, as now he can absorb the souls of everyone in the underground all at once. There's a piece of lore you can read in Waterfall that reveals that if you took almost every monster's soul in the underground, they'd equal the power of one human soul. And with this, Flowey is able to absorb the 6 human souls and all the monster souls, or at least almost all of them, to finally give himself the
Almost
power
all of
of
them.
7 souls.
That being said, so does that mean technically this was not Flowey or Azrael at his full power? He was at 99.99999999999 repeating percent power. And if Napstablook had actually answered the call, would that have meant that Azrael or Flowey would have been just completely unbeatable? God, that would be funny if literally just Napstablook not answering the call just was the only reason we were able to beat him.
And reveals himself to have been Azrael the entire time. This incredible final boss fight against Azrael has you battle with him, barely surviving his onslaught of powerful moves, and he boasts about resetting the timeline and taking control of everything. Even if you fall in battle here, your soul will refuse to die and literally refuse itself back together to continue the fight. Eventually, Azrael shows the full extent of his power and transforms, but by targeting the souls of your friends inside Azrael, you eventually free
Wait, what was that?
them and cause Azrael to friends inside Azrael.
Oh, that was Woody. Okay.
You eventually free them and cause Azrael to experience the emotions they feel for you. With souls inside him again, Azrael gains back the empathy that he had lost as a soulless flower, and in an incredibly emotional moment that made me and just about everybody else tear up, he eventually surrenders after being reminded of his friend through the love your friends felt for you. Undertale uses this touching moment to drop an incredible bombshell again. The character you have played as this entire time was never just a self-insert or a blank slate, or even had the name that you thought you gave them at the beginning. Flowey mistook you for Kara several times, but the game reveals here that the human you play as is actually named Frisk, and it's their own character, independent of anything else. This is certainly a huge expectation subversion right at the very end of the game, and stands out in my mind as a powerful moment. Undertale has subverted tropes throughout its entire runtime, so why not do it one final time? Azrael as a character is an incredibly compelling case. He basically had his whole life taken from him by a plan he never really wanted to do, and he lost everything. He lost his sibling and friend, his parents, his life, and everything, all because of this plan he didn't want to go along with. But he also blames himself because he chose not to attack the humans in the village, and the regret he felt over that continued to hang over him, and was the driving force behind him adopting the kill or be killed mindset. It's an incredibly tragic tale, but yet it feels immensely satisfying at the end, getting to see him do the right thing, and he chooses to use his power to shatter the barrier and returns Frisk back to the underground with everyone else. With everyone all together, you're free to head right over to the ending, or take one last stroll around the underground and talk to literally everybody again. This is in direct reference to the ending of Earthbound that allow you to do this exact same thing. And I really appreciate that Undertale does not require you to do this, as you can simply walk one room to the right and finish the game.
Yeah, I think... Yeah, I of course I saw, afterwards that you can run all the way back and see Azrael again after talking to everybody. Again, my first time playing, I never did that. I just walked straight through the exit and finished the game.
Or you can take the time to go back and see everything. Almost the entire game has brand new dialogue for this epilogue segment, and it is an incredibly underrated part of the game experience that allows you to interact with it as much as you please. It's really something special. Ultimately, once you're ready, you can head to the right and watch the sunset with your friends, and you get one final choice if Frisk goes to live with Toriel or sets off on their own. And on that note, Undertale comes to an incredibly heartfelt finish. Keep in mind that this is only the external layer of our onion. Or lava cake. I guess we agreed it was a lava cake. Either way, all this stuff is just the package the game offers on the surface, and what's here is already phenomenal. The story is gripping, emotional, and has some of the best written and compelling characters in any fictional work that I've ever played. The gameplay is fun, creative, and never really gets boring. The visuals simultaneously produce moments that blow me away, while also being a fun tribute to the personality and charm of Earthbound and games like it. What's here is already an incredible experience, and it helps that it is underscored by what I consider to be Undertale's shining crown on top of the achievements it has made and continues to make. The soundtrack.
Oh God, yes.
is something I immediately fell in love with.
I mean, I cannot tell you, even just out, it is like, the whole thing about Undertale's, like, soundtrack, is it, like, just to attest to, Toby Fox's ability as a composer. Like, almost, like, every single one of the songs in the soundtrack is iconic. Like, even excluding, like, videos that I've watched on, like, Undertale and Deltarune and stuff like that, I cannot tell you the number of videos I've seen that have had, like, Deltarune or in this case, Undertale's soundtrack just in the background as background music. Like, you have, like, so many different songs for almost, like, any different type of feel. And, given that, Toby Fox is, awesome, you don't get penalized for using them in a video at all.
And I do not say this lightly. It is my favorite video game soundtrack. The score is incredibly well composed, rich in fantastic throwbacks to classic game sound fonts and feels, while continuously being dotted by incredibly catchy and memorable melodies.
Honestly, I'd have to agree there. It's one of my favorite. Both, I'd have a hard time picking favorite between Undertale and Deltarune. Both are so iconic, and I love them both. And I'm honestly, like, the thing is, I'm currently, like, slowly working on a video in the background where I'm currently using, like, TF2 soundtracks for, like, the background music in it, because I kind of want to, just try something different. And, like, of course, TF2 being a first-person shooter, it's really hard to find, certain types of music for, like, slower moments or stuff like that. It's like, it's really difficult. If I had just decided to go with Undertale music, I wouldn't be having the problems I'm currently.
The game uses the musical concept of leitmotifs to anchor together the entire soundtrack through distinct
I've heard a
character
lot
themes
about
that pop out
leitmotifs,
throughout
yes.
The entire score over and over again in new and inventive ways each time. You would think eventually this trick would get old, but it's constantly used in such new and inventive ways, and it results in incredible musical moments throughout the entire game that create an air of familiarity and cohesion, while also giving the game great variety in setting and locales. Toby Fox is nothing short of a musical genius, and this soundtrack is his magnum opus. Undertale's music will continue to live in my mind for the rest of my life, whether I'm listening to it in the game itself, or working on something, or playing it on the piano. Hell, this soundtrack revitalized my interest in playing piano as a whole, which was waning during my teenage years. It is a soundtrack I hold very, very close to my heart and in my mind, even when discussion of this game inevitably fades to cult classic status or becomes more niche in general. This is the one thing that will continue to shine through, unfazed as time marches on. Again, I cannot overstate my absolute adoration for this game's soundtrack. The melodies have stuck with me for a decade at this point, and I do not see that changing anytime soon.
Oh, yes.
As a video game, I think Undertale succeeds greatly. Even if none of the following content I'm about to speak at length about was in the game, I still think this game would be very well regarded. And frankly, to the general fan base of this game, these aspects of Undertale are the most regarded parts already. So you already have a very, very great game just on the surface level, but Undertale has so much more to offer to the seasoned and dedicated player.
Honestly, thinking about it, Shayy was talking about, when a discussion of Undertale inevitably becomes, of cult classic status and stuff like that. And, like, generally, I'm trying to think, like, generally how long does it take for a game to become a cult classic? Because, again, this is the 10-year anniversary of Undertale. Like, with FNAF, like, last year, with its being its 10-year anniversary, with FNAF 1 has a much stronger, like, claim to be called, like, cult classic. Because like, FNAF is very much, like, it is a franchise. Like, I can't even, like, it would take me a minute to think. So you have, like, FNAF 1, 2, 3, 4, Sister Location, like, 6, which was Pizza Simulator. You had, like, the 2 VR games. You had FNAF World. Like, you had, like, there are so many games in that franchise. So having, like, the first one, the one that started being classified as a cult classic, feels like, honestly, a lot more apt. Where with Undertale, Like, it didn't spawn a franchise. It's a single game with, a sort of pseudo sequel spin off that's currently being released. And yet, this singular game is still being talked about and loved by a massive fan base almost 10 years later. Can you. So, like, even if, or, when it does reach cult classic status, that is going to be a lot longer before it starts being lesser known. At least I would think.
It offers things only a video game can, in a way that utilizes the medium in inventive ways to deliver storytelling that couldn't really be possible anywhere else. Player choice is the name of the game, and Undertale understands that. I remember when I was a kid, I had this one book. It was called Milo and the Magical Stones, and the book had a split story where you could choose in the middle what would happen, and the book was actually physically split into 2 segments depending on which choice you made. Imagine trying to do that, but with the amount of choices Undertale grants you. It would require a book the size of a football field, or maybe even 2 football fields.
I mean, choose your own adventure stories are already a thing. But yeah, with like the amount of depth Undertale has, geez, yeah, that'd be nuts.
And that's not the only aspect Undertale has that utilizes the medium in a unique way. Many games have stories that kind of just play out like movies. I love the Xenoblade Chronicles series, for example. They have fantastic stories that I enjoy greatly. But I could just go watch a Xenoblade Chronicles all cutscenes video, and it is the exact same experience as seeing the scenes in the game. Undertale doesn't really have that. So much is tied to player interaction. In the next layer of the Undertale unspecified food item... Okay, never mind. Let's go back to the onion. There we go. That's much easier. And less expensive to render. Now, let's take a look into what I like to call the meta-narrative of the game.
What? How are you rendering the lava cake?
How the world exists as a game, how the game deconstructs and commentates over video game mechanics, how the game utilizes the mere act of saving and loading your game as a storytelling device and an in-universe power. And of course, in this segment, we'll largely be talking about the game's most sinister route. The tagline for Undertale as a game is, quote, "the friendly RPG where nobody has to die." And we've seen that part of the game with the pacifist ending. But that tagline begs the question, what happens when they do? Alright, we move into the next layer. Undertale is a video game, and it uses that to the absolute fullest. Video games as a medium for storytelling present a level of interaction that other pieces of art can't quite have. And this game does wonders in taking full advantage of what it is in order to create something really special. But it goes further than that into the full-on meta-narrative and commentary, in a way I've seen few games ever really try to tackle at the depth that this game does. After a player finishes the pacifist ending, they may notice that the reset button changes to say true reset instead. I haven't mentioned resets much until now because I wanted to save it for here, so let's talk about it. Pretty much any video game since the dawn of battery backups on cartridges has a save file to track your progress, and a way to delete it. Undertale takes this inherently video gamey system and actually turns it into a core part of the world building. Saving and reloading is not just a thing you can do because it's a video game, and it needs convenience for the player. No. In this game, saving and loading is an actual defined power that can be utilized by whatever entity in the underground happens to have the most determination at that moment. It's why during the final boss fight with Flowey, when he absorbs the human souls, he can use save states. Undertale takes full advantage of this incredible setup in order to create some really interesting lore and attention to detail. At the core of this is the save reset button. When you reset, you begin back at Ruins, but the game keeps track of various things you did in the previous playthrough for a mixture of storytelling, convenience, and character development. No characters can explicitly remember when resets happen, but there are a few characters who experience deja vu or have a strange feeling about things from time to time, such as Toriel and Papyrus. The game understands that players will instinctively try different choices on different playthroughs and will have dialogue to account for this. For example, when Toriel calls you in the Ruins to ask if you prefer butterscotch or cinnamon, the second time around, she'll either be surprised that you answered differently than before, or remark that she had a feeling that you'd say that if you answered the same as before. Little details like that really lend a lot of credibility and depth to the system, but by far the most interesting thing about saving, loading, and resetting is how Flowey interacts with you about it. Unlike everyone else in the underground, who either don't remember a thing and are entirely clueless about it, or the few that know about the mechanic but are still unable to actually remember, two particular characters stand out, Flowey and Sans. Sans, well, I have more to say about him later, but importantly,
There's a lot to say about Sans, and a lot of people have said things about Sans.
doesn't remember resets. Yes, he does not actually remember "you are genocides." I know, disappointing. But he's able to read expressions so well that he's able to mess with you despite existing outside of the save and reload infrastructure. There's a whole side quest you can embark on where Sans pranks you by sending you to walk on his treadmill in a dark room, but you can only go there after learning his secret code word by proving to him that you have the power to save and reload. It's really funny, but it's also such a unique way for a character to interact with you that constantly pokes at the fourth wall in a fun way. But the other character who interacts with this world, Flowey, is different. Unlike anyone else, he actively remembers your resets and what you did previously. The true reset at the end of the pacifist ending is the only real way to actually remove his memories and start from a blank slate. Flowey's interactions with you at the beginning of the game are some of the best usages of the resetting mechanic as a meta-narrative tool. You can intentionally troll him by restarting the game over and over again to continuously talk to him. You can dodge his friendliness pellets during the tutorial to mess with him. But by far the most interesting example and probably the first big fourth wall break that players will encounter is after Toriel. It's extremely common, if not a completely intended part of the initial sequence, for the player to kill Toriel on their first encounter with her. After all, repeatedly pressing spare to do nothing is not the most obvious thing in the world, and plenty of encounters become spareable when they reach low HP. Toriel, though, specifically has a mechanic where when she approaches low HP, you'll do a huge amount of increased damage, meaning players thinking that this is the way to spare her will undoubtedly kill her on accident. Flowey then mocks you for this, baiting you by saying there's no way to save her, which prompts many players to attempt to reset here in order to try again. And when they succeed in sparing Toriel, they're in for an incredible scare, as Flowey not only remembers that you killed her, but mocks you and ridicules you for playing with someone's life just for your own satisfaction. I will never forget running into this moment for the first time. It's such a unique thing that you never see coming, and it leaves one hell of an impression. It's such a standout moment, and I feel like a part of the core experience for many players. The game basically sets you up to kill Toriel the first time for this reason. It's absolutely genius. And yet, it never holds your hand through any of this. Reloading and trying again is your choice. It never forces you or makes you go back. It's a really masterful use of the medium in what is normally just a standard video game system to have such an impactful moment. Flowey's got a bit more at the end of the game as well. You can repeatedly defeat Asgore over and over again to continuously talk to him and get some fun dialogue. It's quite a lot of fun to clear the game just to see what he'll say. He even talks about his experiences with Papyrus and Sans. It gives you hints at various things you can do, and it all pushes you towards trying to get the pacifist ending so he can enact his master plan. It's such a cool way to utilize the unique setup of the game world. But perhaps the biggest expectation subversion as well as one of the most notable instances of Undertale transforming a video game mechanic into world building is EXP and LV. Right near the end of the game, when you encounter Sans in the Judgment Hall location, he'll drop one of this game's biggest bombshells. EXP and LV are not experience points and level like you'd expect, but rather execution points and level of violence. Numbers that quantify not an arbitrary gamey growth system, but rather how versed one is at hurting others. Undertale really plays with the question of what must RPG characters in the world think about the main protagonist's behavior? Running around and killing everything in sight for money and power is a staple of video games, but rarely do they ask the moral question, because at the end of the day, it's just a video game. But Undertale frames this curiosity in a really understandable way. The citizens of the Underground absolutely would be terrified and scared of someone who just goes around deciding to kill people left and right. It makes complete sense from a narrative standpoint. These are people's friends and family. Their lives aren't just to be taken. And as such, rather than this increasing number that makes one feel better about themselves, instead, the concept of a level system is turned into this branding on your very soul that shows everyone that you're experienced in the art of taking lives. The game very smartly encourages you to be a good person, to not kill, by intentionally making the bulk of the game's quirky and zany humor and occurrences be tied to the characters. The game effortlessly makes you feel bad about killing these people because you're robbing yourself of potential enjoyment.
What did I say before about, the genocide route not being rewarded? Like, when you do it, you're actively making work for yourself. Like, it's not the easy way. It's not even the hard way. It's just the tedious way. And that is it for now, unfortunately. This, of course, was a much longer reaction, so I much prefer to split them up into pieces. So if the next part is up, link to it should be appearing somewhere on the screen, here. I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys in the next part, if it's out yet. Goodbye.